Hey, how you guys doing? It's your boy Amari. I'm here at the Mega Collectors Fest show in New Jersey at the Wayne Powell, also known as Police Athletic Center. Right now, there's a lot of people here at this show. Ooh, you can just feel the magic and thunder in the air. Well, I'm not going to keep you guys in suspense any longer. I'm going to find some people to interview. I'm going to make my time here magical. And, that's what I do. And that's what I really do best. So stay tuned. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
What? You only pay $1 for an autograph? You son of a...
Hey, how you guys doing? This is your boy Amari. I'm here at Wayne Police Athletic Show. My show is called Arts and Pop Culture. I'm here with a very famous man. You may not recognize his face, but you will definitely recognize his voice.
Yes, you will.
He's a very famous voice actor. He works both in the American animation scene and he also does voiceover for anime. I'm talking to the one and only the Titanic, Tony Daniels. How you doing, man?
Good, but Titanic... You mean Titanic? You said that?
Yeah, Titanic or like...
Didn't it go down? Thanks, Amari.
All right. This is how I get the zero.
This kid is amazing.
What's up, man? Hey, you must be a friend of Robert Alvarez, right? You know Robert Alvarez? Yeah, he works in animation too. Ooh. Oh wow. So was this from the Marvel production show?
It's done for a gallery, limited edition.
Oh, okay.
I worked with Stan Lee. I worked with him. I'm able to do it.
So you got any Transformers?
You know?
Fraggle Rock? Fraggle Rock? Fraggle Rock. Muppet Babies?
Warner Brothers.
I'm sorry?
Warner Brothers.
Oh yeah, I'm not a Bugs Bunny fan. Don't get me wrong.
Marvin Marshall.
Nah. Yeah. Oh, you got Sesame Street.
In 1990s.
You got any Batman?
I did, but I sold one. I'll take an order.
We'll see. I'm gonna look you up right now.
I can do it.
I believe you.
Catwoman. Harley
Richard Russell. You have an IMDb.com profile, right? Internet Movie Database profile, right? You have it? I'll check you out right now.
You can become a Facebook friend.
Oh yeah, I have that too.
Just put my name up. Elizabeth Richard.
Richard Laszlo is so cool.
I can text you a messenger. You want something in particular.
This was used on the for the.
I just wanted to get stuff working.
You worked on Bugs Bunny Creature Feature?
Yes.
Yeah.
Also,
This is the history they have on you.
the bunny snatchers.
Yeah.
He's a well-known dude.
Looney Tunes.
He's very well-known.
Looney Tunes.
Yeah, I know,
Is this
Ron.
the only Bugs Bunny you have?
And others got sold.
But you sold it.
I can get
John Allen.
Marvin Martian.
Huh?
Joker.
Oh, wow.
You think I could probably clean people's fingerprints off of it, right?
Just take a tissue.
What?
Just take a tissue.
What did you said 70? What is this? 70 bucks? Deal.
Hey, how you guys doing? It's your boy Amar. I'm still here at the Collector Mega Show. This is arts and pop culture. I'm here with a legendary comic book illustrator and writer. He's so fucking famous, it's very hard to get a hold of. I know because I tried many times through the internet. I sent telegrams, Pony Express, Messenger Bird, no response. But enough of my bullshit. I'm here with the one and only, the dynamic, the amazing Carl Potts. How you doing, Carl?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Wow, this guy is so damn modest. He puts me to shame. I just want to say thank you for coming on my program. Thank you for being here and greeting the fans. You know, before I got to interview him, he was signing a lot of stuff he worked on. So we have so much to discuss and so little time to do it. So, Carl, please tell me, how did you start your journey in comic books?
Like a lot of people that got into the comics business, I grew up reading a lot of comics, and I started drawing at a very early age, and somewhere around late high school or early college, it started to occur to me that there's real people producing these things, and maybe I could be one of them. So I ended up specializing in commercial art in college initially, and then I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area in the East Bay. And back then you had to move to New York to get established in the business. So I packed my bags and moved to New York, and I was fortunate that I'd gotten to know comics creator Jim Starlin, who was living in the Bay Area at the time. And when he found out I was moving to New York to break into comics, he called up a couple of his friends that lived in Forest Hills, Queens, Walt Simonson and Al Milgram, and said, you know, this kid's coming out there and he doesn't know anybody. Can you guys put him up till he gets his feet under him? They didn't know me, but they did, and they're, you know, a couple of my best friends from the business since then.
Yeah, well, I've heard so many amazing stories about Walt Simonson, and shout out to Jim Starlin. You are amazing, man. Thank you for making it happen for Carl.
It goes further than that because Jim decided to time one of his occasional trips back to New York to line up future work with my initial trip out there. So I think it was the second day I was in New York. He took me to the Marvel offices and introduced me to Archie Goodwin, who was editing the black and white Marvel magazines at the time. And Archie bought one of the pieces from my portfolio for a subscription ad for I think it was a science fiction magazine.
Well, for those of you who don't know, Archie Goodwin is a very important man in the comic book industry, and Carl will explain Archie's impact on the industry. Archie is he's a legendary editor, correct?
During his lifetime, Archie was the most universally liked and respected writer-editor in the business. So there was nobody that didn't respect Archie. And
He used to say he was well loved too.
yeah, and he was very funny. But as he was buying this piece of art from me, his secretary came up to him with a stack of unsolicited submissions that had come in over the previous months, all with these rejection letters typed up on them for him to sign. So as he's buying the first piece of art I sold to Marvel, my submission that I'd sent in a couple months before was sitting on the top of this pile. He signs the rejection letter and hands it to me with a smile. And then Starlin takes me into the British reprint department. And in Britain, they produced weekly comics. So they chopped the stories in half, and the second halves would need new splash pages. So sometimes they'd assign those to new people to test them out. So I ended up getting a handful of those assignments, but I found out years later the only reason I did was because the editor took Starlin aside out of my earshot and said, "I'll give this kid some work if you do a cover for me." He did that, and he never told me. I had to find out from Milgram years later.
I mean, was it a good thing that it happened, or was it a bad thing that it happened?
It got me more work out of Marvel, and
So it's a blessing.
oh yeah, definitely, oh yeah. And after that, I started working at Continuity Studios, which was Neil Adams and Dick Giordano's studio, and they were packaging these black and white magazine-sized comics for Charlton, all based on current TV shows at the time: $6 Million Man, Emergency, and Space 1999. So I was working up there on that, and that's where I got to know a lot of people in the business. There were people that were working up there, but also Continuity was sort of the neutral crossroads between Marvel and DC. So when anybody was coming into New York to deliver work to Marvel or DC, they'd often stop at Continuity and hang out or go out to lunch with people from up there or whatever.
What made Continuity like the neutral spot?
Well, because both Dick Giordano and Neil worked for both companies back and forth all the time, and they were also, obviously carried some weight in the business due to their accomplishments. And up at the studio, there were, a number of us young guys that are just breaking in up there, but there were also some people that were just starting to really get established, like Terry Austin and Bob Wyacek. Further back down the hall, Larry Hama and Ralph Reese shared a studio. Carrie Bates was up there.
Oh, you mean Ralph? Is Ralph Macchio or Ralph Micchio?
Ralph Reese. Different from Ralph Macchio. Totally different person.
All right, so Ralph Macchio, that's one of the editors at Marvel, versus Ralph Macchio, the actor.
Yeah. But this was Ralph Reese, who was an artist. Okay.
So when you started drawing, did you draw Flash Gordon, the Phantom, Mandrake?
The first thing I can remember doing is those ads that were in the comics for 300 toy soldiers for $1.99 or whatever. And the first thing I remember doing is trying to figure out who would win this battle. So I'd get a ruler and I'd figure out where everybody's shots were going to go and how many people on one side get. And then from there I ended up sketching characters I saw in the comics and that sort of thing.
Okay, so what was one of your hardest art assignments?
Oh my goodness. I guess starting right off the bat, working at Continuity, we were doing $6 Million Man and Emergency, and they required a lot of reference, which at that time was hard to come by because there was no internet. For fire engines in New York City and ambulances and all this stuff. And then, you had to have all the jets right, everything. So, and then there was a lot of perspective involved, and at that point I knew very little perspective. So I got to crash, course the hard way.
So who trained you in order to, who gave you your training?
Really, it was pretty much on-the-job training. The way I got trained is I'd pencil small thumbnails for each of the pages. Neil would go over them with his flare pen and fix up the drawing where it needed it. Or sometimes he'd totally redraw panels right on top of my pencils without repenciling anything. He just had a vision in his head and just draw something else. And then I would take those into the Artograph room. The Artograph was a large opaque projector that projected straight down on the table. And then I'd trace off the basics onto the large, normal-size original artboard. Then I'd take it back to my desk and do the finished tight pencils. And then it would go get inked by Dick Giordano, Neil Adams, Russ Heath, Terry Austin, Bob Wycheck. So by the time that page got done, and I compared it to what I originally did, I could see all the improvements and changes that had been made along the way. And that was basically my training.
Sweet, man, sweet. So what was your favorite assignment working at Marvel? And also, did you do any work for DC Comics as well?
Yeah, in fact, I did some Aqualad stories and Nightwing and Flamebird and things like that for Adventure Comics. And then I created a new character for them that I plotted and drew 3 pencil episodes for Adventure Comics. But then the late 70s DC Implosion happened, and that all...
What is the DC Implosion of the 70s?
There was a period when the sales in the comic industry took a real nosedive, and DC decided to cut a high percentage of the titles that they published. I forget what it was, but they cut their staff too. And at that time, editing up there were Al Milgrom and Larry Hama. They both got cut, but Marvel was continuing to publish full steam ahead, and they ended up getting hired over there.
Was Jeanette Kahn still the president at DC at the time?
Yes.
Okay. Because I did hear some stories that, around the 70s, books from DC weren't selling too well, like the Batman books. Was it because the stories weren't relatable for the fans?
I'm not sure what it was. I really don't know. I know that for a while they tried doing a larger package for a higher price, which I'm not sure the marketplace was ready for. Like they came out with dollar comics when most comics were like 35 cents, and a lot of it was reprint material, and it seemed like a nice value you're getting for that. But for the fans, a lot of that material that was in there was older stuff that they had already, or they felt it was out of date or something.
Yeah, because recently DC has been making a lot of waves in the news where they're doing things that a lot of comic book fans are not cool with. I'm sure you heard the story about Robin and the son of Superman, Jonathan Kent. I mean, all I can say as a fan myself, like, I'm not for that because those characters weren't created for that particular situation. That's all I can say on camera.
I think it depends on the individual situation. I don't think you can say they're all good or they're all bad. It's all in the individual execution of each one. And there are things that, came out that were different that I didn't care for years ago that now I think, well, that actually turned out okay. So you have to give it some time in retrospect. But, for something that's, an iconic character and all that, to do a super radical shift is very risky because you really risk alienating the fan base. So it better be damn good.
And that's all he has to say about it on camera too. So, what was your favorite piece to work on for Marvel?
Oh my. Well, I don't know if I can say it was a favorite piece, but I really enjoyed the fact I had no plans to be an editor. I got a call out of the blue from the editor-in-chief at the time, Jim Shooter, who said that Al Milgrom was leaving staff as an editor to write and draw for the company full time, and that it had been suggested by Al and then I believe Bill Sienkiewicz as well that Jim asked me to be an editor, and I don't know why, because I'd never talked to either of those guys before about being an editor. I only half jokingly say maybe it was the idea was to get me to stop drawing, but anyhow, so I decided to go for it, and I like being able to wear a lot of hats as an editor. I still got to do some drawing, particularly refs. Like I did for a long time, I did the refs layouts for almost all the covers, and I was training a lot of new talent and doing lots of corrections over their work. And occasionally I do a cover here and there, like New Mutants or Doctor Strange or things like that, and some Moon Knights. But I'd sometimes pencil, I'd sometimes ink. I wrote, I edited, I got to deal with with the marketing side of things as well. I liked wearing all those hats. I just wish I had like 5 clones so I could have done them all full time.
What about colorists?
I did some of that too, but back then the traditional coloring for the comic book interiors was a really bizarre process where the colorists would actually use Dr. Martin's watercolor dyes on Xeroxes of the finished art, and then they'd have to code them. Yeah, YRB was for red, yellow, blue, and then you'd have numbers after that would indicate the percentage of that color. So just like B on its own would be solid blue, B5 would be 50%, B7 would be 70%, and B2 would be B20 or 25%.
It sounds like being a colorist was the easiest job in the comic book industry.
Not really, because back then, if you remember, most of the books were colored on basically tissue paper, which absorbed and dulled the colors. So what you had in your head and what ended up being printed were often two quite different things. And so colorists had to judge beforehand what was happening and code for how it would be reproduced instead of how they thought it should look if it was reproduced properly. Klaus Janson wrote, penciled, and colored the Punisher stories he did for me on the Punisher title, and he was great at judging what it was going to really be looking like. So he adjusted his color coding to account for the printing process.
Right. I met Klaus Janson. He signed some of my Daredevil issues. The one where issue 180, 181, where Elektra dies. That was some deep shit, man. So are you working on any books right now as the moment, or are you retired from drawing for Marvel and DC?
The only reason I don't do more work for them is I'm busy doing a lot of teaching. I teach at School of Visual Arts and online for Academy of Art University. But I also have my own personal projects. I'm always working on screenplays or graphic novel scripts or whatever. One graphic novel that's been in the work for a long time now, and will still be in work for a long time, is a fairly large graphic novel called The Flying Column that I wrote and started doing layouts for, but I was going so slow on it that Bill Reinhold took over doing the layouts and the finished art. But he's been going very, very slowly too, but what he's turned out is just beautiful. He's doing it in ink wash, and then we scan it and turn them into sepia tones, so it has that really, sort of decaying yellowed newsreel look to it, and it's beautiful work he's doing.
Oh, that sounds nice, man. I like ink, but I don't like to do the ink wash. See, what I do is that I prefer to work with watercolors because I tell people this all the time. I'm really in love with watercolors. I love how they blend together. It's magical. It's not the completed work that gets me excited. It's the process.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I tried to use watercolors. You have to really put in the time to practice to learn how to control it and how to wet the area. And, that the term preserve white space, all that fun stuff. Whereas if you're using a much more opaque medium, you can go in and take back some of your white space, but that's hard to do with watercolor.
Oh yeah, I know. When I started with watercolor, like I didn't understand what the hell I was doing, but I took online lessons, and now I kind of understand what I'm supposed to do with it, how to use it. Like for example, tonight I have to leave here. I have to create 3 watercolor pieces, bring them back here tomorrow morning.
Have fun.
Oh, I'm going to get it done quickly, man. Yeah, I'm not going to work slow. I mean, I know you want to I know you like to take your time and put all those finishing touches. I'm not going to do all that. I'm going to get shit done quickly.
Impressionistic.
Oh, I also see you got some DC superhero girls. Is this?
Yeah, I did layouts for some of the different DC superhero girl graphic novels. DC would occasionally call me up when their artists were running late and ask me or other people to do layouts. And sometimes they also will have an artist whose finished art style they like a lot, but that person isn't very good at visual storytelling. And so they'll ask me or other people that, know a lot about visual storytelling to do layouts for them.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I'm not very good at visual storytelling. That's why we work with watercolor, doing one and done.
But you may know I literally wrote the book on visual storytelling.
You heard what he said? He wrote the book. That's cool, man. That's amazing advertising. If you want to learn more, buy the book.
Yeah, unfortunately, that whole line, there was a whole line of the DC Comics Guide books. Like Denny O'Neil did one on writing, Klaus did one on penciling, and another one on inking, and there was one on coloring and lettering, and another one on digital, and then mine. But it was apparently a 20-year deal between Watson Guptill, publisher, and DC Warner Brothers. And then about a year ago, that deal was up for renewal, but apparently Warner Brothers really wanted to get a much bigger chunk of the action, and it made it untenable for Watson Guptill to move forward. So without any notice to any of us working on the titles, the whole deal was killed, and all of the books in the warehouses were destroyed. So the only copies that are out there were the ones that were already sold, and the relative few that are left go for high prices. Right before I came out there, there's a hard copy version. There's soft copies and a hard copy version. The hard copy version now on Amazon, they're asking $900+ for. I don't know who the hell's paying that. No, but there it is. But the paperback ones, I think, are going between $60 and $80 right now.
Oh, that's not a bad price.
No, but the original one was $25. So it's a drag. So when I teach, I'll often give my students a PDF version if they promise not to distribute it or make copies of it.
That's so kind of you. Okay, all right. Well, Carl, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for giving me an interview and the jokes too. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for putting on your costume, Carl. You got to look professional for the camera, especially there's a lot of ladies out there. You got to look good for them. Unless you're married, then don't worry about it.
Used to be.
Okay. All right. Well, Carl, thank you so much, man. It's a blessing to spend time with you. Guys, thanks for watching. This has been another segment of Arts and Pop Culture. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye.